Thank you. Glad you're here. It means so much. Glad everybody's here. Wonderful. I'm glad everybody got here safe. And awesome. We're going to get started. Thank you so much for coming here. Welcome to the beautiful campus of Mississippi State University. On behalf of the Young Americans for Freedom Mississippi State chapter, we welcome you. Thank you so much. If you're interested in joining our group, please find one of our members. We usually table every once in a while. And please follow us on our various social media outlets. And I don't know what that was. It's okay. Follow us on our social media outlets. We have a Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are YAF_MSU. YAF_MSU. Please follow us and check out what we do on our campus. We are a group dedicated to bringing conservative viewpoints and speakers on campus, and we would like to promote civil and productive discussions. So we love getting to know people. We love talking to others. We would like to thank Mr. Robert and Ms. Patricia Herbold for sponsoring this lecture series and making this event possible. Thank you so much for believing in YAF and our mission. Thank you for believing in us. For those of you here, thank you for attending. Whether you are on one of the thousands online watching from the Daily Wire Facebook page or YouTube channel, or if you came from Oxford, Tuscaloosa, or if you came from right down the street, we welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. Andrew Klavan has written many works, some of which have turned into major films. True Crime, for example, filmed by Clint Eastwood, Don't Say a Word, starring Michael Douglas, and Empire of Lies. Andrew Klavan has also written many young adult thrillers. For example, crime novels such as thrillers such as a Homelander series, which follows a heroic teenager's battle against terrorists. His If We Survive was nominated for International Thrillers Writers Award. He has also been nominated for the Mystery Writers of America's Edgar Award 5 times, 2 of which he has won. In addition to this achievement, he also won the Thumping Good Read Award from W.H. Smith. And if these honors weren't enough, he continues his art in his intimate work about his journey to Christianity through The Great Good Thing. A secular Jew comes to faith in Christ, along with his most recent series, Another Kingdom, a fantasy thriller podcast voiced by Michael Knowles, mind you, the execrable Michael Knowles, and available on iTunes and other podcast players. He is also the host of the Andrew Klavan Show for the Daily Wire, where he will be sure to let you know there are no E's in Klavan. Don't worry, I've checked. Only A's. And before we start, I'd like to invite our president, Jesse, our vice president, Kira, and our secretary, Jared. And we have a special, and Clayton, our treasurer. We have a special gift before Mr. Klavan shows up. If y'all would please join me here at the podium. And if you would, please join us in welcoming the thorough, insightful, bald, supreme lord of the multiverse, Andrew Klavan.
Thank you very much.
Here at Mississippi State, we have a tradition where we give you your first cowbell. And it's a symbol of good luck to us at Mississippi State, and it makes you an official Mississippi State member. So here tradition, you hold it up above your head and ring it. There we go. Thank you so much.
The official sticker on it.
Yes, sir. We got your sticker. Wonderful. Just in case.
I want the sticker.
Awesome. Yeah, let me get this out of your way. And we're so excited to hear from you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Well, thank you very much, and thank you especially for that sticker. I've been looking forward to it all day. Just when I heard about that, I was so excited. And thank you to YAF for sponsoring me. You know, I give a lot of speeches that are sponsored by conservative organizations, and I sometimes feel that I'm not doing it right. You know, I think that I think the idea is that I'm supposed to own the libs. I'm supposed to troll the libs, and the idea is that you come out and you say something that makes people so angry that they start screaming at you, you know, and like Ben Shapiro's great at this, and they start screaming at him, and then you post it on YouTube, and says, Ben Shapiro destroys the left, all in capital letters. Michael Knowles is probably the best at it. He comes out and he says stuff so outrageous, like a man is not a woman. And this drives the left insane, and they come out and start screaming at you, damn you, a man is a woman. And they put that on YouTube and says Michael Knowles destroys the left. So I was thinking, what could I say that would be as outrageous and controversial as a man is not a woman, so I could get people angry and I could, have them come out. So I was thinking of giving a speech called A Truck is Not a Balloon. And you know how you have this, you imagine your success. I was hoping like people would come out in their trucks, the left would come out in their trucks and scream, damn you, a truck is a balloon. And then, I'd pull a Ben Shapiro on them and I'd debate them and I'd say, well, if a truck is a balloon, drive your truck off a cliff and see if it floats off into the air. And then they would, and they'd crash in this ball of fire, and we'd put the video up on YouTube and say, Andrew Klavan destroys the left. And, and for once it would be true. But I'm not going to give that speech. And there are a couple of reasons I'm not going to give that speech. And one of them is that I'm different than Knowles and Shapiro in that I'm a conservative because I'm a liberal. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the other day, just very recently, I was with my wife at a hamburger joint in LA called Umami Burger. I don't know if they have them here. They're great burgers. And while I was pretending to listen to what my wife was saying, I was looking around the room, and I saw a scene that really probably has never existed on Earth before. This burger joint was packed, and it was filled with people of every possible color. It was filled with people of different religions. You could see there was a guy with a yarmulke. There was a Muslim couple there. And it was filled, it's LA, it was filled with all kinds of sexualities, There were transgender people, there were gay people, straight people. All of them getting along fine, having a good time at Umami Burger. And all of them, I suspect, in some sense, truly American. And for me, this is a good thing. This is a different thing. It's different than when I was a kid. It wasn't like this when I was a kid, unless you were at the most weird hipster dive and probably not even there. And so this is a change that's happened in my lifetime, and the change could be associated with what we would have called, in my day, liberal ideas. Not Democrat ideas, liberal ideas. And these liberal ideas grow out of our American ideas, right? They're a natural outgrowth of American ideas. This is the way ideas work, and this is important because the left will try and tell you something different. The idea works like this. A man sits down and he writes an idea. All men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator God with certain inalienable rights, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The guy who writes that idea is not a perfect guy. I know this because there's no such thing, right? He's got flaws like you and me. He's got flaws like you and me. He's trapped in the prison of his time, doing things that we might not approve of today. But that idea that he writes down has a life of its own. And off it goes into the hearts of people, and the people who accept that idea start to work with it, and it grows into itself. So after a while, people think, well, if all men are created equal, how come some men are holding other men in bondage? That can't fit with that idea. Either the idea has to go, or the bondage has to go. People start thinking, well, if all men are created equal, what about women? Aren't they part of mankind, created in God's image? Don't they have to have rights as well? And what I was thinking as I was sitting there in Umami is that if I brought Thomas Jefferson, who wrote those words, to Umami Burger, Thomas Jefferson was flawed, who owned slaves, who was said to have slept with one of his slaves. We're not sure about that. If I sat him there in Umami Burger, take him a couple of minutes to get used to the time zone shift, and then he would say, yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I meant to say. That's the way an idea works. Now, when I was very little, those liberal ideas were kind of associated with the left. Like I said, not Democrat or Republican, because there were left-wing Republicans and there were left-wing Democrats. But you would have said that those liberal ideas were on the left. That's not true anymore. In those days, I was on the left because that's where the liberal ideas were. Now it's the left who oppose free speech, who shout people down, who throw people off their platforms, who try to get people fired when they say things that the left doesn't like. Now it's the left who opposes freedom of religion, who finds you if your religion doesn't suit their leftist ideas. Now it's the left who thinks about everything in terms of race, and we have a term for that. We call it racism. And it doesn't matter if it's racist, it doesn't matter who it's racist against, and it doesn't matter who's doing the racist thinking. The devil does not care who does the hating as long as the hating gets done, okay? And now it's the left who believes in the slavery of socialism, and socialism is slavery. You do the work, they spend the money. That's what slavery is, right? You do the work, they take the money and spend it. And most importantly, the left wants to destroy the structures that have preserved those liberal freedom ideas that Thomas Jefferson wrote down. They want to destroy the things that keep those free ideas alive. They want to destroy the electoral college because they lost the election. They want to pack the Supreme Court because they lost the majority, and they want to shut down free speech because they've lost the argument. And it's we conservatives who stand for the liberal ideas that I saw in action at Umamiburg. But it's the ideas that I'm here to defend, okay? I'm a Trump supporter because I think he keeps those ideas alive better than the left. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about, which guy to vote for or which party to belong to. It's these ideas. And that's one reason I'm not going to own the libs. And the other reason is because I'm old. And I'm not just old, I'm old and wise. Not everybody gets old and wise. Some people just get old. I got old and wise. Go explain it. And being old and wise is like climbing up to the top of a mountain. You lose touch with the ground a little bit, but you get a better view, a better perspective. And I have lost touch a little bit. I mean, I am here to tell you that I literally do not know what Cardi B does for a living. I sometimes want to Google her and find out if there was a Cardi A and if there will be a Cardi C, like if she's maybe a clone or something like that, but so far I've never taken the time. But the thing that I do know is I do know what makes for a joyful life. And I know because through a life of suffering and trial and error, I found out. I know what works, I know what doesn't, I know what will make you happy, what won't make you happy, I know what's worth thinking about and what's worth leaving behind. And the other reason I don't want to own the libs, but I want to talk about these ideas, is because I know that they're the ideas that will make you happy. And when I look around at America today, I see a lot of people who aren't so happy, you know? I mean, you guys in this room are the freest, richest, healthiest people who have ever existed on planet Earth, right? You have more wealth. The poorest person in this room has more wealth than the pharaohs of Egypt had. You can walk into a mini-mart at a gas station and buy food that's better than you would have gotten at an orgy given by the emperor of Rome, okay? You have everything. You have information in your phone that Aristotle would have killed for. The suicide rate in America went up 33% over the last 20 years. The suicide rate among people your age, among young people, went up 56%. So it's like, you know the line in the Bible where God says, I put before you life and death, choose life? Choose life. In America, they put life before us, and we're choosing death. And even the people who aren't in despair don't look that happy to me, the young people, okay? We on the right, we like to make fun of the snowflakes, the liberal snowflakes, the people who show up and, you know, the minute you say anything, they're triggered and they have to run to their safe space and it's a trauma and everything is a trauma. And that's pretty funny, I gotta admit. But it's also kind of not funny, you know? I mean, you guys are young, strong, healthy Americans. The last thing that should frighten you is ideas. You should be talking about ideas all the time. You should be arguing about ideas. It's one of the great joys of life, arguing about ideas with people you disagree with. And people are afraid. I talk to conservative students who have to lie. They say they have to lie in their essays in order to get a good grade. That's humiliating, and it's a crime, right? A professor who's teaching you to lie, a professor should be teaching you how to think, how to find the truth, and how to express what is in your heart boldly and forthrightly. If he's teaching you that you have to lie, you're getting screwed. You're getting cheated out of an education and out of the basic information you need to become a fully functioning adult. So what I'm here to tell you is that the ideas of freedom, of God-given rights, these are ideas that will lead you to joy, or can lead you to joy. The ideas of the left will turn your life to crap. And there's a really simple reason for this. If there's anyone here who grew up Catholic or just knows about Catholicism, you've heard about the 7 deadly sins, right? Pride, envy, wrath, lust, greed, sloth, and gluttony. Now, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to believe in sin. You don't have to believe in hell. You don't have to believe in anything. But the Catholic Church was the only church in town for 1,500 years. And the one thing they knew is how people thought and behaved and what was bad for people and what was good for people. And when they said the 7 deadly sins, they were picking the 7 behaviors that will ruin your life, okay? And what's amazing is that everything the left preaches is one of the 7 deadly sins and will help you ruin your life. So I'm going to go through them. And I'll try not to talk too long because I actually would like to talk to you. I'd like to hear what you have to say. And especially if you disagree with me, please, you're welcome to stay and ask questions. But let's just go through these for a minute. Let's start with pride, okay? Remember gay pride? Now gay pride is like a month, I think. Soon it'll be 6 months. Probably it'll be year-round. On Gay Pride Month, Knowles came on my show. Michael Knowles came on my show. He's a Catholic, and he said, you know, pride used to be called the queen of sins. And I immediately said, now it's the sin of queens. Because I'm trying to destroy Ben Shapiro's network. And but the thing is, pride is always a lie. It will always make you miserable because it's a lie. Nobody's proud of who he is. Why? Because we all know ourselves too well. We know what we are. We're not proud of it. None of us is. And listen, this is not at all a hit on gay people. I'm an artist. I have been friends with and colleagues with gay people all my life, going back to the 1970s. A lot of people who are gay allies can't say that at all. I was friends with gays and supporters of gays when it got you in trouble, okay? So this is not a hit on them at all. But pride is like the emperor's clothes. I'm sure you know the story of the emperor's clothes. The emperor was naked, but they told him he was wearing beautiful clothes. Everybody was afraid to tell him the truth, so he just walked around naked thinking he was in beautiful clothes until an innocent child who wasn't afraid of him pointed at him and said, look, the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. And everybody knew he was naked and he was humiliated. That's pride, because it's always a lie, okay? Now, there's a lot of pain in being a gay person. You could be rejected by your parents, you could be rejected by your church, and even if everybody's nice to you, it's painful. The human body is a machine. It's an animal thing. It's there to make other human bodies, right? We are built for men and women to have sex and reproduce and nurture children. That's what we're built for. That's all your body wants to do. That's why it's here. And when a young person suddenly finds out that his desires are not in league with that physical mission, he feels ashamed. He feels bad. And the left, that's when the left comes after them and tempts them to be proud. Say, you're proud. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. The thing is, they're wearing the emperor's clothes, so they got to make sure, like the emperor, that everybody's afraid of them, that nobody is going to say, you know what, I don't actually agree with you. I think this is a sin. Or, I don't think you're doing the right thing, or I just don't like you. They've got to make sure that everybody's too afraid to say that, so they've got to knock people out of their businesses if they won't bake a cake for their wedding. They've got to knock them off Twitter if they once made an anti-gay remark. They become incredibly mean, incredibly intolerant. And gay people who used to be kind of funny and loosey-goosey and self-deprecating are now, I call them homo-fascists because they attack anybody who disagrees with them. It's sinful. Now the thing is, I'm going to tell you this, and I'll make this short. I don't like to bring my family into these things, but my son, who is dearer to me than my own life, is a gay guy. And he's also a devout Christian. And he's also a brilliant person. And this is what he said to me. He said to me, you know, Christianity has opposed homosexuality for thousands of years and is doing fine. If I go to them and want them to change their minds and let me in, I've got to make the argument. I've got to go to Scripture and show them what I mean from Scripture. I've got to be honest and convincing, and they still have the right to reject me. That's the opposite of pride. That's called humility. And humility respects other people's traditions and their lives and their beliefs, and it treats other people with respect. And here's the thing. On Twitter, they attack my son, and they say, well, you're a self-hating gay person? When I look at a gay pride parade and I see a guy dancing down Hollywood Boulevard in leather pants with no back so his backside is hanging out, when I see an angry woman with a pussy hat on so her vagina is where her brains are supposed to be, when I see people holding up angry signs saying we're queer, we're here, and get used to it, it doesn't look like pride to me. That looks like shame and anger and self-hatred. When I look at my son, I see somebody who is at peace with himself, with his community, and with his God, who, if it's possible, loves him even more than I do. Pride, like all sins, feels good when you do it, and then it makes your life crap. Envy. We all feel envy. There's an old joke, I think it was Somerset Maugham, the writer said, it's not enough for you to succeed, your best friend has to fail. And we all feel envy, and we all hide our envy because we all know it degrades us, right? But not the left. The left loves envy, right? They don't call it envy, they call it intersectionality. They talk about privilege. You've got white privilege, you've got male privilege, you have more money than me, right? You're supposed to think about that all the time. Are you the biggest victim or is he the biggest victim? Poor Pete Buttigieg, who used to be a $1 million victim, now has to apologize for being a cisgender male, whatever that means. This is a crap way to live, to spend your life worrying about what other people have and whether somebody's got more than you, whether somebody's got privilege or is being treated better than you. This is a waste of your life. You will not solve a single injustice in the world. All that will happen is you will waste your life. And I will tell you about life. It goes by like this, all right? There's 15 minutes between you and me. 15 minutes from now, I'll be gone, you'll be here. Gray hair and everything, okay? If you spend your life worrying about what other people have, oh, he's got this privilege. If you spend your life worrying about what you have, oh, I have this privilege, I have to feel bad about that. You, instead of being a jolly old codger like me, you will be a twisted, bitter person. When you get to the end, it'll be too late to change. That will destroy your life. The opposite of envy is kindness. You should be thinking every minute, I can't believe they teach you this stuff. Some of these leftist universities, this is classes they take in, who has more privilege. Instead of asking you, what are you going to contribute? What are you going to do for somebody? Are you going to build a home, make a home for somebody? That's the greatest gift anybody can give anyone. You're going to make a child and give it love. You're going to do a job. Whether you're president of the United States or picking up the garbage on the street, at least you're doing something for somebody. That's a useful life. That's a life that'll lead you to joy if you do it right. Envy. I'm telling you, this stuff will kill you. Wrath is the third sin. Outrage. I'm outraged. I'm outraged. You said so-and-so, and now I'm outraged. You use this word instead of that word, and now I'm outraged. This is the left every single day. I like to say that anger is the devil's cocaine. And the reason I say it is because anger makes you feel righteous, right? If you're outraged that somebody's racist, that means you're not racist. You're a good person. If you're outraged at the way somebody treated a woman, that's sort of telegraphing that you would be a nice guy. You're a nice guy, you know? The problem with outrage, with wrath, is it's the same as pride. It's a lie. You're not that nice a guy, and you're not a hero. And the way you can tell the left is lying, have you seen what's happening with our athletes, the NBA, the basketball players, and the NFL, the football players? These are guys who disrespected the American flag to make a protest against the police treatment of blacks. They were outraged, okay? They were outraged. Now, they've been asked to apologize for standing up to the freedom fighters in Hong Kong who are fighting the Chinese government, which is a truly horrific government. The Chinese government murdered 65 million people under communism. Until 2015, they were tying women down and forcing them to have abortions and to be sterilized. Their dissidents in China disappear, and then they take their organs and use them for transplants, which sounds like a bad horror movie, but is true. The NFL, all these outraged athletes are suddenly apologizing. Oh, sorry, did we offend the Chinese government? Because they don't want to lose the profits, right? Because they're outraged, their heroism. Remember Colin Kaepernick? Believe in something even though it means sacrificing everything. That was the Nike ad for him. And suddenly when they have to sacrifice the money they're getting from the Chinese, not so much. It's always a lie. The opposite of wrath is patience, is dealing with people, listening to people, hearing what they have to say. Maybe you're wrong. You know, maybe there's some reason the police act the way they act in certain neighborhoods. Maybe the police have seen some things that you haven't seen, you know? And maybe if you want to make a protest to me, your fellow American, maybe you shouldn't disrespect my flag, which is the thing that binds us together. I can't worry about everybody. I worry a lot about my fellow Americans of all colors. But once you tell me my flag stinks, hit the road. Lust. The left loves lust. Lust is the favorite of the left, okay? Now this is the thing. I lived through the sexual revolution, and it was fun. and it was the main draw that brought the country over to the left. if it feels good, do it, right? Now they call it pleasure activism. This is their big thing, right? And especially with women, they were kind of, like, women were a little slow, they thought. You know, you should be, they said to the women, you should be like men. Men will sleep with anything. You should sleep with anything. Men go out and they get drunk and they sleep around. You should get drunk and sleep around. Why not? You got birth control, right? And if the birth control doesn't work and you have a baby, kill the baby. It's going to be great. You know, it's going to be a great life. You know, get drunk, sleep around, get pregnant, kill the baby. It's going to be terrific. But now you see suddenly, all of a sudden, this is what they told us for 30 years. When Bill Clinton had a girl young enough to be his daughter with no power doing sexual favors for him in the Oval Office, they were like, no, it's fine. It's just sex. You know, do what feels good. Now suddenly they're angry, oddly enough. They have the Me Too movement. And it's a funny thing about the Me Too movement. First of all, the Me Too movement has taken in guys, mostly guys, who are left and right. It was happening at Fox News. It was happening in Hollywood. Harvey Weinstein, and let me tell you, I work in Hollywood. Everybody knew what Harvey Weinstein was doing. None of those left-wing actors who make speeches at the Oscars, none of those producers, studio heads, none of them did anything to stop Harvey Weinstein because he was making good pictures and he was making the money so he could rape any girl he wanted, and nobody said a thing, okay? Same was true of Roger Ailes at Fox News, where the right-wing Christians were living and where he was going after anyone he wanted to. They were right and they were left, but they were living under left-wing culture. That was leftist culture that did the sexual revolution. And here's the funny thing. Matt Lauer was the guy at NBC, the most liberal news station, except for all the other news stations. And he was going after any girl who came within his grasp, right? He had a button on his desk that automatically locked the door so the interns couldn't escape before he went after them. I know, but I'm not making it up. So now a girl is complaining, a young lady is complaining, or she was a young lady at the time, that she had 6 vodkas, went to his room, went to bed with him, and he sodomized her. After which, she began a relationship with him, okay? And now she's complaining about it. She says that wasn't right. And Lauer, who was at the time married with 3 children, said, I didn't do anything wrong. She came to my room. She came to my bed, she agreed, and then the proof that there was consent was she began a relationship with me. And you know what? Under the rules of the left, Matt Lauer is right. What did he do wrong? You know, in my day, if you took advantage of a girl who was drunk, the guys would take you outside and kick the crap out of you, okay? But now, well, why should Matt Lauer apologize? You tell me why he should apologize. What went wrong? What went wrong? Why? Everybody, all through history, people have dreamed of free sex. Now they have free sex and everybody's miserable. Men don't even have sex anymore because they think that pornography is easier and safer. And you don't have to talk to the person when it's over, you know? So what went wrong? I will tell you, I'm here to tell you, as an official old wise person, what went wrong. What went wrong is this: the body is a machine, it is an animal thing, it has one purpose, and that is to reproduce and make other bodies. And especially when you're your age, and especially if you're male, it is telling you, let us do this thing now, all the time, continually, all right? The problem is you are not your body. You are not a body. You are a soul, you are a spirit. Your body eats and craps and screws. You love and reason and feel, and if you let your body lead the way, you're going to go right down the drain, whereas if you make the body the servant of you, right, that's called chastity, that's the opposite of lust, then you're going to live an incredibly great life, or you may, at least you will have a chance. Now, I want to go through these quickly because I do not want to keep talking when I can talk to you. But the 5th sin is greed. And greed is hilarious. The left is hilarious about greed. Here's the left's philosophy about greed. And if you listen to Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right, you will hear them say this. If you go to work and you get paid for your work, and then you want to keep your money and spend it the way you want to spend it, you are greedy. If you go to work and earn money and they take your money and spend it the way they want to spend it, they're generous. That's actually their argument. That is the argument of socialism, all right? It is actually their argument, and obviously it doesn't make sense, so what's the problem with it? Well, why do politicians do the things that they do? They may tell themselves they're doing it for the good of mankind, but they do it for power. Politicians like power, they want power. when they give your money to someone else, that someone else will vote for them. They have bought their vote with your money. It's greed, right? There's a thing that welfare workers have told me about. It's called welfare psychosis. Welfare psychosis is a real thing. Welfare psychosis is when you start to feel that you deserve the money you are getting from the government that was earned by other people. And people show up and they're angry if their check is a day late or an hour late. And they say, where's my money? Where's my money? Which is, by the way, your money. It's not their money, okay? That makes perfect sense. Why? Because they know they've been bought. They're saying basically, I gave you my vote, where's my money? Greed, and that's what that is, ruins your life because it makes you feel that you are entitled to the things you're getting. Charity, which is the opposite of greed, is very different. Charity is when you make the choice to go into your pocket and give money to someone who needs it. That ennobles you because it's your choice to make a sacrifice of something that belongs to you. It also ennobles the person who receives the charity because now he has to feel gratitude. He has to sort of look at his life and say, how am I going to pay this back, either to this person or down the line, right? 6, I'll get to it. Sloth, and this laziness, okay? The left encourages laziness by encouraging you not to think, okay? By encouraging you not to think about the things they're saying. And the way they do this is by the way they use language. They use language to condemn and demonize things that are actually perfectly reasonable. Islamophobic. I'm constantly called Islamophobic. Constantly. I've been at one university, they actually barred the door with junk and put junk in front of it, barricaded the door with junk because I was so Islamophobic and it was Ramadan and they didn't want me to show up. There is no such thing as Islamophobia. There is no such thing. Phobia, obviously, is an irrational fear. Nobody is irrationally afraid of Muslims. Nobody in America ever woke up one day and said, you know what I'm scared of? Spiders and Muslims, right? That just didn't happen. People are concerned about the violence in the Islamic world, which has nothing to do with the vast majority of Muslim people, right? But Islam is at war. I think the top 13 of the top 14 major conflicts on earth involve Islam. Islam is at war with other Muslims, it's at war with Christians, it's at war with Jews, it's at war with Buddhists, it's at war with secular people. It can't all be the other people's fault. It's not racial because Islam is not a race. There are plenty of different races involved in Islam. It's not people. The people aren't worse. We're all pretty much the same morally. We all kind of suck morally, right? It must be the ideas. There must be some ideas in certain forms of Islam that need to be questioned. That's what we do here. That's the whole point of being on the planet, is questioning ideas and figuring out the good from the bad. So when they say Islamophobic, they're asking you to be lazy. They're asking you not to think. I mean, there's so many things like this, like racial profiling, where they tell a police officer, if you take note of the color of a person in a neighborhood, you know, that's the wrong thing to do. Think about that for a minute. You're a cop. You're at the place where the crimes take place. You're out there trying to help people. Do this mental experiment. If a cop had an app on his iPhone that revealed criminal intent, would he be looking at the color of a person's skin? No, he'd be looking at the app because he doesn't care about the color of the person's skin. He's trying to stop crime using all the instincts and knowledge he has. Diligence is the opposite of sloth, and diligence is what you need to think your way through the laziness that the left insists upon. They insist upon laziness because their ideas don't work, and they've never worked, okay? And finally, the most boring of the 7 sins is gluttony. And the only thing I can say about this is there used to be this diet program where they would advertise with a little button. They'd make people wear a little badge that said, I lost weight, ask me how. And so you'd go up to them and say how, and they'd sell you this diet plan. And I always wanted to get one of these little badges that say, I lost weight, ask me how. And when somebody came up and said how, I'd say, stop eating so damn much. So here's what I want to leave you with, and then I hope you will ask questions and we can talk. I began by talking about liberalism. True, American liberalism, the thing that makes us more and more free, more and more like Americans. And that comes from the ideas that God gave us rights that the government does not have the right to take away. The rights were given to us by a higher power, and the government does not have the right to take them away, even if they want to, and they always want to, okay? And among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And nowadays, and even conservatives do this, it drives me nuts. Nowadays, even conservatives will say to you, when they talk about happiness, they'll talk about making money, starting a business, starting a family, living out whatever your dream is for your life. And all of those things are good. All of those things are positive. But I don't think that's the happiness that the founders were thinking of. I think they were thinking of happiness the way Aristotle defined happiness, which was virtue. In virtue, the human being finds happiness because virtue is in keeping with the rational people that we are. Aristotle said that virtue leads to happiness, and Jesus said that love is the path to virtue. And again, as an official old wise man, I'm going to tell you, and you can take this to the bank, 100% of your joy in life will come from virtue through love. Will come from love acted out in virtue. Not 99%, not 95%, all of it. All your joy in life will come from love acted out in virtue. So when the left, or when anyone, because it comes from all sides, tempts you to pride, envy, wrath, lust, greed, sloth, or gluttony, commit yourself to humility, kindness, patience, chastity, charity, and diligence, and don't eat so damn much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful speech, Mr. Klavan. I would now like to open the floor to questions. If you could please walk around back, do not come to the front, walk through the nearest aisle and line up with my colleagues. We will take questions, and we will come up one at a time. I will hold the mic for you, and we would like it to be as concise as possible with no follow-up questions. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Klavan. I just wanted to ask why, when you went over sloth, why did you go over Islamophobia instead of something like the body positivity movement?
Well, you know, it's funny, when I was thinking of the body positivity movement for gluttony, because the body positivity movement, like a lot of the things that the left tells you that your shame comes from outside. It tells you if you fat shame me or body shame me or slut shame me or anything, that you are creating the shame. The fact is, people know what they're supposed to do. They know how they're supposed to behave, and they know how they're supposed to treat themselves, and the shame, it comes from within. And so this whole notion that it's the emperor's clothes, this whole notion that somehow you can get rid of the bad feelings you have about what you're doing by forcing everybody else to not mention them, is not going to take you to the river. It is not going to take you to the river, and it's not going to get you across. The thing is, you've got to look into yourself. If you're feeling shame, it may be irrational. Sometimes people feel irrational shame because of the way they were raised or something like that. But you've got to look within, because once you know that you were right with yourself, nobody can make you feel ashamed.
Hey, how you doing? I guess to a reference of your political correctness, I mean, in the news today, what do you think of Donald Trump's lynching tweet today?
I don't care. Seriously, I don't care. Every time Donald Trump opens his mouth, he says good morning, and they go, well, it's not good morning for everyone, you know. I mean, the guy cannot say a thing, and I'm sick of it. I got to tell you, I'm sick of it. Look, it's not what I would have said, because not because he's not right. I mean, it is, what they are doing is illegal and it's wrong, what they're doing to him. But lynching has these deep racial connotations. So it would be like, to a Jewish person, it would be like saying, oh, it's like the Holocaust. You know, ease up, you know. But he's got a big mouth. He's got a big mouth, and he speaks without thinking. And in a lot of ways, in some ways, not always, but in some ways, it actually speaks well of him, because I believe that Donald Trump is many things. He's some things that I don't like, but the one thing I don't think he is a racist, and I just don't think he thinks about it. I seriously, I don't think he thinks, oh, this is going to sound bad. It hurts him in the polls every time he does it. Every time he does something that people take it to be racially insensitive, it hurts him. He doesn't think about it, because I think he's just there to get people to make money. I think that's what he wants, what he sees himself as the guy who fixes things. I've heard him say this. I'm the guy who fixes things, right? So, I don't know. I'm just scandaled out, you know? I mean, the guy is doing a good job. He's a big American character with big American flaws. I get it already. The left doesn't like him. But I'm not going to throw a fit every time he says something and they make a big fuss about it. That's the way I feel about it. Yeah.
Quickly, thank you for coming to our campus. We do appreciate you. My question is, are you a proponent of Darwinian evolution or creationism, and could you briefly explain?
Yeah, well, again, this is a matter of complete theological indifference to me. God can make the world any way he wants, and he doesn't have to check in with me, you know? It's like, but here's the way I look at it. The answer is going to come from science. The answer is not going to come. The Bible is not there. The Bible has many different genres within it. I believe the Bible is inerrant. Is that the word, the proper word? I believe there aren't any errors in the Bible, but I believe there are genres in the Bible. Some of the things in the Bible I think are legends. Some of them are myths, and some of them are straight stories. We know this because Jesus tells stories. When Jesus says there was a man who had 2 sons, nobody says, where did they live? What were their names? You know, we get it. It's a story. It's a genre, right? So right now, science is telling me there's evolution. There are now some cracks appearing in that theory. In terms of species to species evolution, it just seems too impossible. The odds seem against it. When science tells me that that's no longer, when scientists tell me that that's no longer the truth, I'll believe them. I think it's going to be science, which, by the way, is a creation of Christendom. It's going to be science that shows us the way. That's the way I feel about it. So I don't actually turn to the Bible for that information, and it makes absolutely no difference to my theology. I know my Savior lives. And that's about as far as I need to go with the science of it. Yeah.
So first off, thank you for coming to our campus. We really love the talk. So I have a lot of friends that really feel like it's a hopeless fight now to fight for our conservative ideals. How do we kind of persuade them that it's not so hopeless and that we do really have a chance to fight and make ourselves more known?
Oh, wow. It's no way hopeless. In fact, I think we're in good shape. You know, it's tough. It's a tough fight because we're trying to take power away from an entrenched establishment. They don't like that. And we're trying to do it by democratic means and not taking to the streets and hurting other people. And it's hard to do. You know, what we're trying to do is hard. If you look over in England, where all they want is their government back, and the EU is like, no, you can't have it. You know? I mean, and not only that, the government is saying, no, we don't want it, because then we'd have to do stuff. It's a hard fight. But let me tell you 2 things, okay? I lived through Jimmy Carter. Those were terrible years. You went to get a gallon of gas in your car, and you could only go every other day. This is in America. You could only go every other day to get gas because they were out of gas, right? You had to line up. Once you got there, you would line up for an hour, 2 hours. Inflation was insane, right? Unemployment was through the roof. And Jimmy Carter would get up and give these speeches. Well, this is just the way this is the way it is. It's like, this is, we have to support America. We have to, say something nice about America. Ronald Reagan came into office, and within 2 years, it turned around. I mean, suddenly, it all turned around. And that's what changed me from a liberal to a conservative. I thought, gee, everything that old coot said was true. Everything he did worked, right? It turned the country around. We had 25 years of almost unbroken prosperity after that. So I can't tell you how hopeless it seemed under Jimmy Carter. It's hard. Go watch the movie Miracle about the hockey game. You'll see how hopeless it was under Jimmy Carter and how amazing it was for the next 25 years, economically at least, right? The other thing was, I lived in New York at the end of the 70s and the 80s. It was hell. It was hell. There was a cartoon in the Daily News. It was so bad, there was a cartoon in the Daily News of people paddling on their briefcases to get off the island of Manhattan and to get to safety, okay? There was the Son of Sam killing people. There were riots on my birthday when the blackout happened. The heat was terrible. The cold was terrible. The city was filled with homeless people. I went to work at a radio station at 3 o'clock every morning. Here's how I got to work every single morning. I came out of my apartment, I took off until I reached the Korean grocery where the prostitutes hung out. And then I stood with the prostitutes because I knew nobody would kill me where there were people until I could get a cab. And then the girl said, "So long, honey," and I went to work. I did that every day. I was the only guy in the newsroom who didn't get mugged, okay? That was New York. Rudy Giuliani took over New York. He was called a racist every day. He was called a Nazi every single day. He was just like Trump. He didn't care. He was just too aggressive and honest and mean to care. And it happened every single day. By the time he left that city, it was the queen of the world. It was the jewel in the crown of the world. It was the greatest city on earth. And now it's falling back because the leftists have gotten into it again. It's never too late. It is never too late because the trick is you don't have to get there. You just have to turn the ship around and everything gets better almost immediately. You just have to start heading in the other direction and things change. So I think, listen, if Trump wins the next election, I think things are going to go pretty well for this country for quite a long time. And over 8 years, you get a lot of people who grew up under prosperity and they start thinking, that worked, I mean, that's what I thought. I was a liberal. I hated Ronald Reagan because they treated Reagan just like they treated Trump, same way. And then one day I thought, he said the economy would come back, and it did. He said the Berlin Wall would come down, and it did. And nobody else said those things. So maybe I should change my mind. It's never too late, Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi, how you doing? So when you touched on privilege and who has more privilege, would you disagree with the fact that, in my opinion, I guess, that it is systematically harder for some people in this country, based on the color of their skin, to excel in work, in their career, and education because of the color of their skin? Would you disagree with that fact that there have been systematically things set in place to make sure they don't succeed?
Well, it's a complicated question. I want to make sure I answer it properly. There was, in my time, a lot of institutional racism in this country. I mean, truly horrible things where black people couldn't use the same bathroom as white. Very, very degrading, insulting way to treat your fellow Americans. And there was no excuse for it, right? And it was a bad thing. All of that institutional racism is gone, all of it. 100% of it is gone. Yeah, there's no institution, there's no racism that the government approves of. That was what was so horrible about it, is that the government said, yeah, you can do that, go ahead. The government of this state or this city is going to treat black people. What's that?
In terms of redlining, when it comes to housing.
Hold on, I'll get back to this in a second. Nobody can get rid of of the racism of human beings, of the racism in human hearts, and that's going to stay around. This is, and I lived overseas for 7 years, this is the least racist country on the planet. The least racist country on the planet. It is the most ethnic, most peaceable country on the planet. Now look, is it harder to be black than white in some instances? You bet. When black people say to me, the police treat me differently, now I feel that that's the fault of criminals, not of the police, but still, that's humiliating and it's unfair and it's unkind, and it's things that we can think about and talk about. Do I think that a black person has less of a chance of getting a job at this point? No, not if he's qualified. I think he probably has more of a chance because people are looking, I know, to hire, multi-ethnically. But part of life is that it's unfair. And the problem is the people who will tell you it's unfair are usually people who are well off. And so you think, well, of course, you can say it's unfair, but it's still true. It's unfair. And so if you're going to make life fair, you have to start crushing people. You have to start making people stop thinking things, stop saying things, stop feeling things. And then you have a government that can make you stop talking, thinking, and feeling the things that you feel, and then you're no longer free. So freedom entails a certain amount of unfairness. And being a big boy and a big girl is understanding that unfairness and acting yourself in the fairest way possible. That's what that's about. Now, as for redlining, if the New York Times reported on this, of all people, the talk about redlining among realtors, for instance, was largely untrue. What they were doing is they were following the economics of people they thought could pay back loans and people they thought couldn't pay back loans. They weren't following the race of people. And it was because of that that the government started giving these loans to people that they knew they couldn't pay back, and because of that, Wall Street started gaming those loans and the economy crashed. Look, again, life is unfair. People get treated unfairly. The best thing you can do is not do it. No.
Hey, Mr. Klavan. So earlier you talked about, students having to lie to, pass their classes and stuff. I personally, have to kind of, stoop down to that level too. How would you go about that if you were a student?
Well, whenever I get to ask this question a lot, and I always feel it's half the question. The question is, how would you speak your mind? But the rest of the question is, without consequences. Now, I'm going to tell you this flat out. It's just the truth. I was a Hollywood screenwriter. I was making a bundle, okay? I started speaking out about my politics because Hollywood was making movies depicting our troops as the bad guys in the war on terror. And I said, that's a terrible thing to do while they're being shot at, right? That decision I made cost me millions of dollars. I mean, literally millions of dollars. I've never lost a night's sleep over it because I cannot imagine what it would be like to live my life afraid. I just can't think about it. I don't fight every battle. I'm not a belligerent guy. I'm not in people's faces. I don't look for fights. I don't look for arguments. But I will speak up when somebody assumes I think something that I don't think. I will speak up when somebody says something that is completely untenable and says it in a context where it could affect other people, right? And I will make nasty, silly jokes just to show people that it can be done. That we should be able to make fun of one another. We should be able to make fun of one another in love, but still. So I don't know what to tell you. It'll cost you. And you have to decide when the cost is worth it, what the cost is going to be, and how to best mitigate that cost. Because there's some people you can go up to and say, look, you're putting me in this bad position. That's not right. And you can win that argument with some people. Some people have a conscience, not everybody. But you got to make that decision yourself. That's a decision that every person has to make for himself because it will cost you to live an honest life. It will cost you to live an honest life. If there is one message in the gospel, that's the message. Speak the truth and they'll kill you. That could be the entire, that's the good news. The gospel means good news. That's the good news. Speak the truth and they'll kill you. So again, you have to make that decision. You have to make that call, who you're going to be, how you're going to live, and what you can live with from yourself and from other people. Nasty answer, right? Yeah.
Mr. Klavan, I just want to thank you for coming to our campus today and presenting to us. So I saw on the YouTube trending page about 2 weeks ago, it was a video from Ellen DeGeneres, and people, it was mainly social media and mainstream media had an issue with her sitting next to George W. Bush. Yeah. They couldn't comprehend that two people with such conflicting points of views could be friends. And it's clearly possible because socially, I would say I'm a libertarian and economically more conservative. One of my best friends is transgender and female, and she's also bisexual. Where did we take a wrong step in creating this environment where people with such conflicting points of views couldn't be friends anymore?
It really is. It really is a problem. And I believe that a lot of this is keyed into the fall of the Soviet Union. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's true. I'll tell you why. The Soviet Union was the great leftist experiment. They thought, somebody said, I have seen the future and it works. That was the Soviet Union. When Ronald Reagan said we're going to beat the Soviet Union, people just thought he was out of his mind. That was really the great test of leftism, and it failed. And once it failed, they stopped being able to argue. When I say they were against free speech because they've lost the argument, that's part of what I mean. And it has continued down that road. This is half the answer, and I'll give you the other half in a second. It's continued down that road. The less you can argue with people, the more you have to shut them up, the less you can befriend them, right? Because two friends who are, look, you can debate anything. Two people of goodwill can debate anything and find some common ground or just agree to disagree if both of them are honest and looking for answers. But once you're just looking to impose your will on somebody, you can't do that anymore, and so you can't be friends with people. The other thing that happened is that the left won on certain issues that maybe they should have won on, right? Maybe, you know, obviously the issue of racial tolerance and less racism and no institutional racism, the people who were for that, the liberals, though they were both Republicans and Democrats, they should have won, right? So once you win, there's an old saying that a revolution devours its own children. The problem is once you win a revolution, the inheritors of that revolution have nothing to fight for, nothing to make themselves feel important about, nothing to make themselves, give them meaning in their lives. And so they keep on at the revolution. So first you say, you know, women should be allowed to make the same choices as men. You say, okay, that makes sense. And then it's like, men are toxic, you know, they're terrible. It just, you have to keep amping up the issue to make yourself important and make yourself, give your life meaning. And it's so typical. I mean, it happens all the time. This is why the gays are particularly painful. I mean, it's 20 minutes ago, people hated gay people universally. Even Barack Obama was against gay marriage. And today, if you say that, you literally can lose your job, right? That's that phenomenon that you're seeing, the phenomenon of success, because people love power, man. You know, like they love power, and what they say to you is, oh, we just want equality. But once they have the power, they start abusing it the same way the people who had it before them did. The answer to this has got to be in people like you. It's got to be on the individual level. I thought what Ellen DeGeneres did was terrific. You know, I disagree with everything she thinks. She used to be my next door neighbor, Ellen DeGeneres. She was lovely. She was a lovely neighbor. You know, I disagree with everything she believes. But of course she should be friends with George W. Bush. You know, of course she should. You should be friends with everybody. I mean, until you can't be friends, you know. You ever see the movie Roadhouse, my favorite movie? And the advice is about a bouncer, and the advice he gives his fellow bouncers is be nice. Be nice until you can't be nice. And that's the way we should all behave, right? And so, you know, I really do think that the phenomenon you're seeing is the result of failure of ideas and success of ideas. The failure that had led people to not be able to engage in argument, and the success that makes people abuse power. Those two things coming together, I think, have created the situation we're in.
First off, I want to say I'm glad that Starfield could welcome you with wonderful weather. My question is, I listened to your speech at the Acton Institute and heard about how your walk with Christ, one of the pivotal moments, was a secular comment from the Christian pitcher saying you just got to keep going. Catcher, my bad. We're in the Bible Belt, and a lot of what we do down here is through Bible-tinted glasses. So we kind of lose that method of secularly communicating to people on the other side, as their definition of love doesn't often include, like, punishment. So how would you say we as conservatives can make this secular argument for conservatism?
Well, this is kind of, I feel, the annoying blessing of my life. You know how the blessings God give you are always really annoying, like the blessing you just don't want. And the blessing God gave me is that he waited 45 years. He gave me 45 years before I found him, and the joy and serenity that God has brought into my life. And I have frequently, as I say in that speech, I have frequently gone to God and said, why did you let me wait so long? You know, why did you withhold this gift from me so long? And the answer I've come up with is that he wanted me to make every stupid mistake of intellectual thought it is possible to make, so that I would understand what people were saying when they told me they didn't believe, right? And the problem you have here is the opposite problem. You grew up with it. You never had to think it through. You never had to think it through from the ground up. Doesn't mean that people don't do it. Some people do it, but you don't have to, right? You got it. They gave you the gift. So you have it. It works for you. It's great. You never stopped and thought like, you know, well, wait a minute. Here's a good argument against. Here's a really good argument against. What's the argument for? One of the things I've noticed in Christian culture is that nobody teaches you the good arguments against your faith. So when you run into them, it's like a buzzsaw. People lose their faith because they find out, oh, you know, there's a history to the way the Bible was made. And they never heard that before. They thought, oh, it just was put down on paper in a single splash. You know, it never occurs to them. So you have to think your faith through. That's the answer. You have to think your faith through. You have to think, well, how did I get here? Why did my parents teach me this? Why is the Bible such an important book? Why did it inspire so much of what we have in Western culture? And once you start to think that stuff through, then you can start to speak to people at the step before God, right? the step before God, because they're going to come to you and say, well, how do you even know there's such a thing as truth? You know? How do you even know there's such a thing as truth? You have your truth, I have my truth. You think this is right, I think that's right. Well, how do you even know? And I hear Christians say this all the time. Well, it's in the Bible. But the guy doesn't believe in the Bible, so you're saying nothing to him, you know? So you got to think it through from the ground up, and that's the way you do it. I mean, that's why I'm sure that's why God put me through all this, is so I would know when I hear these arguments, yeah, okay, fine, but here's the argument against. And that's the only way to do it, because you can't start with the Bible, because then you don't believe in the Bible.
My question is, conservatives both promote the Gaddis flag or the Don't Tread on Me flag and the police. I want to know, how do they justify this juxtaposition of the police as a state and individual liberty? And as that, are the police an antithesis to individual liberty in the sense of the war on drugs and also firearms legislation? My bad.
Yeah, that's right.
Firearm laws. So how does I guess, Republicans or more so conservative viewpoint justify those both supporting positions?
Okay, it's actually not a conflict. It's just a gray area, right? I mean, in the Federalist Papers, I think, I'm trying to think which one it is, but they say if men were angels, they would need no government. But we're not. We need a government. We know we need a government. If we were perfect, then we could all be totally, completely free. And so what the founders did was they invented this kind of Rube Goldberg machine where every time you pull on this lever because you want that power, somebody gets hit in the head with a hammer over here and gets angry and comes over, and it's all balanced out to keep people from getting too much power in one place, right? That was the idea. But there's got to be powerful people. There's got to be authorities. There's supposed to be authorities, right? So the police are supposed to represent the laws that our representatives pass, right? That's the way it's supposed to work. And if you violate those laws, you have to be arrested. There's no contradiction there in having a free government, having a free country, and having laws, right? Without laws, you don't have a free country. It's just the guy with the biggest club gets to be king. That's the way that works, So you need the laws and you need authority. But in each of the cases that you started to ask, each one has to be considered individually. Like, are drugs so dangerous that maybe people, I'm kind of a libertarian. My feeling is that the government has the right to protect you from me, but it doesn't have the right to protect you from you. So I believe you probably shouldn't be able to use a cell phone while you're driving, but they shouldn't be allowed to tell you to put on your seatbelt, And this is, by the way, all these things apply to the federal government. State governments have more power because they're closer to you. When it comes to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is written there to tell you what rights you have that are above democracy, that they're not allowed to vote out of being. They're not allowed to vote that you have no freedom of speech, right? They're not allowed to vote that you can't practice your religion. And they're not allowed to vote to take your guns away. And for very good reason, right? The Second Amendment, which says your right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Even infringed, that's coming in from the fringe, right? Your right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And the reason they said that was because they wanted a stronger country, so they needed a stronger central government. And they said the army will be federal. The army will be run by the federal government. So the state said, well, wait a minute. What if the federal government starts to oppress us? And they said, well, people will have the right to bear arms, so the states can form militia to fight the federal government. That's why. So every time you hear somebody say, you don't need a gun like that for hunting, that's not why we have guns. We have guns to fight the federal government if, God forbid, that becomes necessary, right? So that's a law that our founders thought should not be infringed, okay? Drugs are just one of those things that we have to argue about among ourselves until we find the right balance. That's how a democratic system works. Does that answer the question?
Somewhat. I guess more on the firearms laws, as you said, but is not the police the representation of the state and enforcement of the firearm laws? Is that not the infringement of the freedoms of the individual by the state?
Yeah, but there's no such thing as an utterly free society because men are not angels. So there's going to be infringements. I mean, that's the problem with libertarianism as a obsessive philosophy. I'm basically of a libertarian heart, but the idea of libertarianism as an absolute philosophy just doesn't work because we'd all kill each other,
This will be the last question. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Klavan. I'm somebody who tends to get really emotional whenever I'm talking about something that, like, my views on things. And so what advice would you give to somebody who wants to engage in political discourse with somebody who has like extreme conflicting viewpoints from their own, but doesn't want to let their passions take over or emotions take over facts?
Could you just tell me, when you say emotional, do you mean angry, or do you mean like...
Yeah, like getting angry, or being very protective of your own views, even though somebody can't just strip those away from you.
Yeah. The thing that I try really hard to do is I really try very hard to let people explain themselves first. Like let them, even when they hit that thing where the little bell goes off in your head and you just want to, your hands start to move on its own, Even when that happens, I try to let them explain what they're trying to say so that I can explain what I am trying to say. And if you can get that into your, because the thing is, if for no other reason, it doesn't work. It doesn't work when you shout at them. It doesn't work when you climb down their throats, and try and force them to think what you want them to think. But if you listen to them, sometimes there's a good idea in there. The left has gone so crazy now; it's really hard to find those good ideas. But sometimes there's one in there. But if you listen to them, at least you hear their humanity. At least you hear that they're trying. Almost 90% of people are looking for the good. They're trying to do something good, right? And a lot of times, the questions that you have to ask are really simple. The question that, this really bothers me when the left talks, because our press is so dishonest and so one-sided. They never ask this question. They always ask the left, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for health care? How are you going to pay for, this plan or that plan? They never ask, what's it going to cost in freedom? What does it cost in my freedom? How do I lose my freedom with that plan, right? How can you tell a doctor that he has to do what you say he has to do? It's his life. Why can't he treat whoever he wants to treat at whatever price he wants to charge and can get away with? So a lot of times, if you hear people through, you come up with some questions they never thought of before, and if you leave it there and walk away, it can really be a powerful tool. So all I would just say is listen to them. Remember, they're people. They really. I know it's hard to believe, but they really are. And I think the longer you listen, and the later you talk, the easier it is to keep control of your emotions. Sure. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming out. Thank you especially for this cowbell. I have 100 uses I'm going to put it to. I can't tell you what any of them are, but I do appreciate it. And thanks a lot. I appreciate it.